Croeso! It's Friday, it's 4 o'clock, and it's Dragonheart. Wow, what a result on Tuesday. That victory at Weymouth was the greatest comeback since Sam Ricketts came back to the racecourse last week. But to be fair, that didn't last long. He just changed the toner cartridge in the photocopier and left. Have you made your Christmas list yet? I hear the Weymouth goalkeeper has asked for a stepladder. And there's a friendly war on social media over who scored our first goal. Adi Yusuf claims it was him. Theo Vassell is shouting fake news and threatening to take the result to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. In unrelated news, it is now the editorial policy of Dragonheart to run jokes about Donald Trump challenging the presidential election results into the ground until he thankfully becomes irrelevant in January. I'm Mark Griffiths, and I'm joined by Tom Barlow and Lucy Scott. Our guests are Paul Rutherford and Nigel Beaumont. So, what are you waiting for? It's time for Dragonheart!
I'm Kwame Thomas.
I'm Adi Yusuf here.
I'm Anthony Jeffrey.
And you're listening to the Dragonheart Radio.
Yes, it's that time of the week again. Time for Dragonheart. I'm joined by Lucy Scott and Tom Barlow. Lucy, hi, good to have you on the show. And wow, we've got a heck of a game to look back on this week, haven't we?
Who would have thought Wrexham coming back from 2-0 down to win 3-2 at the death after it's happened so many times to us before.
And Tom, we'll also hear from Paul Rutherford. He's a solid citizen if ever there was one, isn't he?
Yeah, become one of the faces of the club now. And I'd just like to say, I didn't realise Christmas was being brought forward by 10 days.
Exactly. Well, I welcome it. I think, let's be honest, this year, Christmas is whenever we want it to be. After this, let's relive the madness of Weymouth.
I'm Rhys Johnson, and you're listening to the Dragonheart Radio Show.
Chance to cross from that side now to the back post, unmarked in the middle. That's an early goal for Weymouth. Corner comes in from the right hand side. It's a 6-yard box, it's headed in. Weymouth 2-0 up. Davis goes deep to the back post again. Again, it's hit the bar. Theo Vassell, second header to it, it's turned on. Adi Yusuf, it's in. And Theo Vassell still going in the penalty area. Vassell hits, he scores! Wrexham are back in the game. Paul Johnson stands across over to the goalkeeper, it's in! Wrexham have won it in the last minute!
The other side, you're listening to the Dragonheart Radio.
Wow, I'm exhausted just listening to that again. I've got to say, first and foremost, before we even get on to that mad game, Colin Henry's commentary. Well, both of you listened to it on the night. I mean, he was just superb, wasn't he?
Yeah, he really was. And it must have been a great game to be commentating on. So pretty jealous of Colin in that situation.
It's a hell of a journey down there. I went the last time we played there, the only other time we played there, and I had quite an ordeal. So to get all the way down there for a night game, I'm glad that he had something to cheer about.
I'm not jealous of the journey.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
The game.
They say he had something to cheer about. I bet at half time he was thinking, what a wasted journey, because, Tom, that first half was horrible, wasn't it?
I know, being 1-0 down in about 3 minutes, I think it was. And then, going into the half-time, 2-0 down, slightly better performance towards the end of the half. But yeah, going all the way down to Weymouth on a cold Tuesday night for that, I wouldn't be happy. So yeah, I don't know what Colin or Dean Keats or anyone was thinking at half-time in the Wrexham camp.
I think I can have a good guess. We had Pearson come back, which is great news. But the three at the back, well, to be fair, I mean, apart from the 2 goals and then a couple of late chances, Weymouth didn't really create anything. So I'm not sure what I think of the 3 at the back. We certainly allowed the full-back too much space to put the cross in, and then we had 2 players in the box unmarked. That feels alarming when you're bedding a new defensive system in, to me. I think we need to see more of it to see if it's worthwhile persevering.
For me, I'm not the biggest fan of 3 at the back. I think, obviously not Wrexham, those clubs play it when they're trying to hide a slow defender or they're playing a full-back in one of the centre-back roles, like you've seen with Kyle Walker. But Pearson, obviously Pearson, he's a club captain, but he is a bit slow. But, we've seen the partnership with Vassell and Kelleher, and it has been good. And obviously, Pearson's come back from injury now. How do you work that out? And obviously, Dean Keats has gone for 3 at the back. I'm not the biggest fan of it, and you've got to give it time, and you've got to see how it adapts with the rest of the squad. And if you judged it basically solely off the first half, then you'd scrap it instantly. But look, we came back, scored 3 goals. So, yeah, we've just got to give it time, haven't we?
Yeah, the percentages weren't good on the first half. It's like 3 attacks, 2 goals. But
yeah,
having said that, the individual performances of the 3 centre-backs were pretty good. I was very pleased with Pearson. He looked up to speed. And also, you say about hiding centre-backs, so I'm going to say that in a slightly different way. You can hide a centre-back who's not quick in the middle of a 3, and he's got players either side. And he did that job, just like Brian Carey did when Dennis Smith used a back 3. He did a good job as a big, aggressive stopper. Higher up the pitch, though, I mean, Lucy, we played Elliot Durrell in centre mid in a midfield 3. I'm a fan of Elliot Durrell's, and I think he's already shown us a lot this season. But I think with hindsight, that was a bit deep, really, for him. I think I'd rather have him a bit higher up the pitch, actually creating rather than putting the running in the middle of the field.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if that's he's comfortable with, or more comfortable with himself. But the times I've seen him play, you can see it's clear that when he gets the ball, he is hungry for the goal and off to get a shot away. So he's always trying to cut in and shoot or cross or get the ball into the box. So it is a different, I suppose, a different dynamic as well. But the difference did seem to be when Jordan Davis came on and then Yusuf and Jarvis, the more attacking. I say more attacking. It didn't obviously necessarily change the formation, but different types of footballers, I would say, to Durrell.
Exactly. And I mean, just before that, the first change that was made wasn't a substitution, but it was telling. As Tom was saying, the second part of the first half was better. Still wasn't great, but it was better. We were the better side in that. It looked like two poor sides then, so 2 bald men fighting over a comb. But the change was that we were playing with basically Harris holding and Young and Durrell either side going up and down. Like I said, I don't think really suited Durrell much, and he had his quietest game, I'd say, of the season. When we then switched after half an hour, we had Young and Harris as a double pivot and Durrell in front of them, and straight away, twice he got beyond the strikers. He was offside one time, a tight call, but it was good to see a bit of dynamism and Durrell getting high up the pitch. And that was the start of something, the start of us getting back into the game. And then that was massively added on when Jordan Davis came on as left wing back, because, like you said, Lucy, although the basic change was the shape's the same, but Davis was taking people on, beating them, delivering in the box, putting good set pieces in. He was man of the match for me. He turned that game around massively. And, a lot of people have been calling, Tom, haven't they, for Davis to be given a go on the left flank, and he showed us what he could do.
Well, yeah, first I'd just like to say I've been waiting all season for Keats to play that 3 in the midfield with Bull, Harris and Young. Now, he, like you said, he went for Harris anchoring at the start, which, look, I am a fan of, and I would have Harris sitting, but Durrell, you can't have him just sitting a bit too deep. He needs to get forward. He needs to support the strikers like he eventually did when he went to more of a cam position. And like you said, Young and Harris acted almost as a pivot, like 2 not central defensive midfielders as such, but when Davis came on at left wing back, if you call it that, nowadays, because fullbacks seem like wingers now anyway. But yeah, he really did change the game. He got forward. We saw that pace and aggression, like no wanting to get forward. And yeah, I think he had a few efforts, didn't he?
Yeah, he had a couple of shots from outside. One shot from outside the box. And then he had another where Hall Johnson did really well and drove in across. He was looking to try and hit somebody in the 6-yard box, but it went beyond there. And Davis following it up got it on his weaker foot and tried to curl it top corner from about 15 yards and didn't hit the top corner, but he wasn't far off. It was a good effort on his weaker foot. But he just changed the dynamic.
I think for man of the match, though, he might be contested by Adi Yusuf for his incredible goal. So
if he touched it, because all right, that goal brought us back into it. But it's been fun on social media, hasn't it? I think the back and forth between he and Theo Vassal.
Yeah, I love it. You go on Instagram or Twitter and he's claiming all the goals, putting hashtag no goals, no sleep, claiming it. And Theo Vassal tweets back at him, calling him a liar, basically. It's good banner. They're obviously getting on his teammates. But, I don't know if he touched it.
I can tell you, looking at the footage, you can't tell either. He runs. It's weird as well. Looking at the celebration, often celebration can tell you a lot. He immediately runs away, and you sort of feel, is he over celebrating this to try and claim it when he didn't touch it? But then he's halted because I think he thought the referee had disallowed it. So you can see Vasal's running back, but shouting over to him, "Did you touch it?" Clearly, he's shrugging at him, and Yusuf seems to be responding, and then suddenly has his head in his hands and looks horrified. And the referee's pointing towards the goal. And I thought he disallowed it as well, but he hadn't. So it was hard to read, but something weird was going on. The thing is, we go straight up the other end then and score again with Theo Vasal's, the more I see that goal, well done to him, but he beats three men just by block tackling them. And at one point, he's about 2 yards away from the ball. The two defenders are between him and the ball, and they tackle each other. Unbelievable defending by Weymouth. You got to take those chances, Lucy, when they come your way, though, haven't you?
Yeah, of course. And regardless of what the score is in a game, as you can see, whether it's the first goal or the third goal, but they obviously all count for the same. But that first goal did change. There was a shift in the game, shift in the momentum, wasn't there? And you almost felt like maybe Wrexham could. And it was kind of like confidence was growing, and from what Colin was saying, that Weymouth was sitting back, kind of happy to let Wrexham attack, and it kind of obviously paid off for Wrexham, but you've got to take your chances.
I'd scouted Weymouth's last 3 games, and they looked awful, and they were defending deep and panicking, and that was exactly what they did this time. And I felt that, although I wouldn't normally say this because it's not how you play, but they looked so bad. I almost just wanted us to keep just putting anything in the box to let them panic, as if the more goes in there, the more likely at some point they'll mess it up. And I did sort of feel like how it went, because that second goal, well done to Vassal, they did ever so well, but it's unbelievably bad defending. And then the third one is a fluke, and the keeper, he's looked this way for a while, actually. He's a very agile goalkeeper, hits some shots from the edge of the area, he's great, but not that great in the air. And he misjudged the cross, basically, mishit cross, and the keeper's going to beat it and flapped his hands at it. I'm not complaining.
I've seen that goal so many times now. It's like he crosses the ball and the keeper pauses, thinking obviously it'll just go into the box. Yeah. Then he realises it's going to him. So he just thinks he can just catch it, then he realises it's too high, it's not jump. Yeah. So he just flaps an arm at it and it just goes into the other corner of the goal. But I can't believe, honestly, watching the replays, I still can't decipher what he was trying to do with it.
I've got to be honest. I'm constantly sticking up for goalkeepers in those situations. Speaking as a failed goalkeeper myself.
Yeah, because you are one.
Well, yeah, precisely. But some of those goals, like that, people say, "Oh, the keeper's out of position." No, he's not. It's just that if a cross goes in, that was not intended. And if you were in position for that sort of thing, you'd be out of position for the actual crosses that go in the box. So generally, goals like David Seaman letting in that Ronaldinho free kick and things like that, I tend to say, no, lay off the keeper. But on this occasion, no. That was just a mishit cross, and it was keeper's ball. And he, like you said, he completely misjudged it, seemed bemused then, froze, and flapped his hands at it. It was just an awful mistake, wasn't it? Good news, though.
Yeah, good news for us. Bad news for them, though, in the relegation zone. I think they've conceded 23 goals now.
Yeah, they really...
I think it is. In about 12 games.
It's crazy, isn't it? And speaking of good luck as
Yeah,
well,
it's not good fun.
my awful stats that I referred to earlier. Last time we scored a winning goal in injury time, October 2017. That was at Dagenham.
Wow.
And it was an own goal, which Paul Rutherford actually set up, as he mentions when we talk in a moment. Last time a Wrexham player scored an injury time winner, rather than it being an own goal, January 2017. And it was a John Rooney penalty against Boreham Wood. And if you really want to get obscure, and this is what I talked to Paul Rutherford about as well, the last time a Wrexham player in open play scored a winning goal in injury time, August 2016, Mark Carrington, 207 games ago. That's mad.
Wow.
The reason I talked to Paul Rutherford about that, not just he drove in the cross for the own goal, but because 2 games before that was Rutherford's second game for Wrexham when he scored an injury time winner at Guiseley. So we basically, we got 2 games out of 3, we scored an injury time winner, and then we didn't again for 207 games over 4 years and 4 months. Wow. Let's hope we start another pattern, eh?
To be fair, it is normally us that's giving away leads, so we don't get many chances to actually score winners.
Yeah, true enough. Yeah, I say let's start a pattern. Actually, no, I hope we're always 4-0 ahead when we get into added time. That's better situation, isn't it? Well, I've hinted that we're going to hear from Paul Rutherford, and so after this, here he is.
I'm Fiacre Kelleher, and you're listening to Dragonheart Radio Show.
Oh, well, thank you so much for joining us. I've got to say quickly, before we just talk generally, we had that crazy game at Weymouth, and here's a weird fact for you. First time in 207 games a Wrexham players have scored a winning goal in injury time.
Is it, yeah?
That's pretty mad, isn't it? And,
you're not wrong.
And yet, we did it 207, that's 4 years, 4 months ago.
Was that Cara?
That was Cara, and who did it 2 games before that?
Was that me as well?
Yeah, that was you. We did it twice in 3 games. Sorry, say on.
207 games. Hey, that's a long time ago, isn't it?
Yeah. So we did it twice in 3 games, you and Cara, and then we didn't do it for another 4.5 years.
I didn't realise it was that long ago. That's 207 games ago. Oh my god.
That's in open play. John Rooney scored a penalty against Boreham Wood as well, not long after. And there's been an own goal, which you had a hand in as well. The game at Dagenham, you stuck it in the goal mouth.
Yeah, Dagenham away,
yeah. A centre-back didn't want Scott Bowden to get a goal, so he stuck it in himself.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know which one was lucky, that one or Reese's last night, to be honest.
Oh, yeah. That was, well, I'm sure he's saying he meant it, isn't he?
I don't think you can say he meant that one, like.
No.
I don't think it matters how it goes in at that point, so it's just up and down, and I stand next to Academy, just jumping up and down, buzzing.
Oh, brilliant. I was just, that Guiseley one, let's just go back to that for a second. It's only your second game for the club. That must be a hell of a feeling to do that in a game like that.
Oh, yeah, I was buzzing, to be honest, like. Obviously, you're coming to a new club, you want to make a good impression early on, and, I don't think I could have done much better than that goal. It just, I caught it really sweet. I think it stayed about the same out the whole way, and, it was a really nice finish, that one, to be honest, Ronnie.
Well, yeah, I was right behind it, commentating, and I tell you, it's one of those where the moment you hit it, you can see it's in, before it's even got into the box, you can see that the keeper's not getting it, and you put it in. Fantastic.
The only thing I was worried about, and that one was missing the first player, because I thought if I miss him, the angle on it's lovely. Like I've got the right angle, the right arc for it. So if it doesn't get deflected first player, then it's on its way. Like so, I was buzzing with that, but I only really hit it, to be honest, because I was knackered. I'm absolutely spent here. I just need to cut in here because Newt's made a good run on the outside. So I thought I was hoping for the pull on me bank. Here I am. And then, just whipped it in. Yeah,
I reckon you made the right choice there. I'm alright with that.
I was going to say, it's one of a few I've made, not many.
I get away. I mean, to be fair, when you score, they tend to be spectacular. You can score some beauties.
Yeah. It's a shame I couldn't score a few more,
well.
isn't it? But as you say, it's, they tend to be quite special when I put them in, so... I live with that, and if I piece them all together and tell people I only play for one season or something.
Is that something that's been true all your career, or did you save all the spectacular ones for us?
I scored one for a belter for Barrow, to be fair, against Chester. To be fair, I've scored a few, so I scored one where I picked it up in my own half, ran past a few, scored. Yeah, there was one against Olsen for Barrow where I've cut in left foot and put it in the top corner. Yeah. That was a good goal. Yeah, there was a couple, to be fair. I've dotted them about, but mostly, they have come at Wrexham with a bit more speculative ones.
It's I've got to say, I remember very clearly when we signed you, because you always tended to stand out for me when you were playing against us. I used to fear you, to be honest with you. You'd be running at full back, so I used to feel edgy in derbies and different games like that. And also, when we first went down to non-league, my son then was, about 10? And we got all enthusiastic about going to new places, and we really threw ourselves into it. And we actually went to Wembley and saw you tearing it up in the FA Trophy final as well.
Did you, yeah?
Oh God, yeah, you were terrific. And so I was so excited when you came in. Now, I know you can't comment on this, I'm not expecting you to, but you and Cara, well, you came in that summer. There wasn't much else I felt that came in that summer that was really the sort of players that would take us on, only yourself and maybe one or two others. And there's only you and Cara who stuck around after that season, really.
Yeah, but I agree with you, to be honest. Yeah. I know you said that, I don't have to comment, but, I think, in fairness, it is something that, I do reflect on now and again, to be honest. I think, John Rooney come in, did a really good job. Yeah. That played out how it played out and everything. Curtis still come in, but other than that, I was a little bit like flipping heck, what have we signed here? Yeah. I was coming from Southport, and I thought, I need to, up my game here. I need to make sure the man that wants to survive in pre-season and make sure I'm at it, because this is going up a level. And then I obviously seen a few lads departing, Connor Jennings and a couple of others. And I was a bit like, what's going on? And then, if we're speaking really honest, the calibre of, the rest of the signings wasn't really what the club should be expecting, and, certainly isn't what the fan base deserves, or, the history of the club deserves.
Well, that's how I felt as well, to be honest. You put the words out of my mouth. I remember we beat Mould 8-0 and people were getting excited, and I was saying, but to be fair, we ought to beat Mould 8-0. We should be bullying them. And it looked chaotic. There tended to be like changes of shape, massive changes of shape, massive changes in the team. And for me, I felt that in some ways the problem was personified by what I saw around you, because I felt that you had really good movements and people weren't picking you out, weren't seeing your movements. And it sort of frustrated me. I kept looking at you and thinking, I'd love to see you with better players around you who will spot you and pick you out.
Yeah, that's how it felt, to be honest. I felt the best flow that I had all that season was early on, when I was close to Newt and I was close to John Rooney on the pitch and close to Cat at the times, where you could connect with them. I felt some of the the forward passes that you play were sometimes in vain, in terms of you're playing into the forwards' feet, it'd bounce off them, whether it was Taylor, Riccardi, whoever, it would sort of bounce off them, and it wasn't reliable. Or if you slid them in, sometimes the finish wasn't there to match the play previous to it. So it was frustrating, and it was something that did open my eyes a little bit. But the thing that I take from that year is, I felt that's where my standards personally improved quite a lot. I got myself back in very good condition, and just the day-to-day habits of being back full time again, and and incorporating different things into my training regime. And I think that's what sort of put me in good stead then for for the seasons that followed that one.
But that you were part-time before that season, weren't you? So you had to. Well, am I right?
Yeah. So at Southport, we were sort of in the catchments between being part-time, full-time. Yeah. So it was. I think we did Monday, Tuesday, Thursday days. They'd sometimes flip it so that we did Tuesday, Thursday, Friday days. So it was only one day less, but it is a bit like, you don't realise how big a difference it is at times. Yeah. So it does just interrupt the rest of the training schedule. It interrupts the manager's plans, and then sometimes if certain managers come in with different ideas to the previous manager, it can upset lads' schedules with with how they go about their lives and everything. So it's it's frustrating for the manager on that part, and then it's frustrating for the lads on that front, when they're having to say to the family, well, yeah, I'm part-time, but you need me in 4 days this week, you need me in 5 days this week.
Yeah.
And then the manager's sometimes, in vain a little bit when he can only get you in for 3 days that week because, contractually that's what you're obligated to do. And, a lot of the lads at that time had, different things going on, and, it wasn't always possible for them to come in as and when the manager needed them to be there.
Yeah. It looked to me, when we played Southport, Southport always looked impressively organised, considering, like you said, it wasn't easy to maybe coordinate training all the time, because it seemed to change shape quite easily during matches. Whereas, like I say, that first season, the Wrexham team looked a bit more like didn't look like we'd make drastic changes to our shape or our strategy without necessarily looking like it had been worked on much beforehand.
Don't get me wrong, there's benefits to it. So, for example, if we're doing say if it was a Tuesday, Thursday, Friday week, you're just missing the cool down day really on a Monday, so you're not missing any of the content. You're only really missing the cool down. But sometimes the manager would set you something to do at home. Sometimes it wouldn't always be possible. But I think the other thing is this. Certainly with Southport, the catchment area, and Barrow as well, when I was up at Barrow, we were full time, but the catchment area is strong. You're getting a strong northwest area to come and get, a good pool of players. So, even Jordan, my Southport days, we had Mike for Phoenix, I was never really big on him as a player, but, he'd been to Barnsley, we had Louis Almond who could, win you the game at the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
We had Gary Jones that was coming down from Rochdale and Bradford in the career that he had. It was it is just dependent on the type of player that you can get in. We were never also rans or anything, but the mentality wasn't the same. The mentality of we go into this game to win.
Yeah.
And I understand that Wrexham we haven't always delivered them. But the intention is always there that we go to this place, we win. We go there, we win. This is where we want to win. But at Southport of the old coming to the race course, if we can nick a point, then brilliant. If not, then so be it. We'll move on to. Boreham Wood at home at that point. When they were sorted down there, and I think that's where we'll make our points up. So, it's a different mindset, but certainly across the board, you can get some talented players there. Football's not always black and white for me. Players don't always play at the the corresponding level. I think some people can underachieve, some people can overachieve. And Southport had a nice mix of players there at times.
Absolutely. The looking back at that first season as well, you got injured in the last game before Gary Mills left, and as a result of that, you were missing for the first good 6 weeks or so when Dean came in. But just to, I suppose, to emphasise our point about how it was sort of directionless before, I was looking at the stats. So under Mills, you had 1 goal and 1 assist, both in the same game at Guiseley. And then after Dean came in, you start 22 games, you get 2 goals, you have 5 assists, which in a team which is scrapping against relegation is great form, great stats, and also maybe a sign that now you've got people coming in like Russell Penn, James Jennings, players who are getting their heads up, seeing your movement and actually feeding it, and you've got players in the box who are more likely to convert the chances you create.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it was. I thought, once Dean Keats come in, I thought he just transformed the club. I always speak really well of Gary Mills. He brought me to the club and everything, and I like some of the ideas that he had in terms of opposing himself and the opposition and so on. But there was a lot of negatives to that as well in terms of his recruitment. I also feel that at times it was probably a little bit too dismissive of the opposition. It was just like, there's your team, put it in the back pocket. It's not, well, we can really get at this player, or we can really get at that one, or we've got to be mindful of this one. And I think the gaffer now he transformed that. He brought in a better calibre of player, player that understood the game, a player that understood what the club meant to people. I thought that's where if I'm speaking ultra honestly with you, I thought that's where certainly Gary Mills somewhat where he recruited himself and so on. I thought he missed the mark in terms of people who are passionate about the club.
Exactly.
And that's not to say that the lads at the time didn't want to try hard or anything, but I just don't feel that they fully got the grasp of what the club meant, to the town and to the people. And I always think that's a bad combination, and that's why I think, certainly the ones that you've listed that sort of work, that, are lads from working class backgrounds. And, that's not to say that some of the others weren't.
Yeah.
But if I look at, some of the young lads that we signed at that point, I don't think they understood what the club is about. I mean, I won't name any names, but I remember speaking to one lad, and we were playing Southport away on, I think it was New Year's Day.
Yeah.
And he turned up and went, oh my God, this is terrible, look at this. This is, you know, we used stronger words than that, but it was like, what is this? And then he went to me, how did you play football here? This is awful. This is, what's this? What's that? And I was like, you're miles off it.
Yeah.
And bearing in mind, this lad had come from a lower level team himself.
Yeah.
And I was like, God, a minute, are you trying to like dismiss this club and dismiss, you know, the level that we're playing at and everything, like when you play lower? I was like, no, this just doesn't sit right. And I was like, that's where I think he missed the mark in terms of those signings. But then, as you said there, you know, that gets a little bit, as you said there, you know, Keats come in, he brought in Russell Penn, brought in Isaac McLeod. You know, I don't think he fully hit the form that he wanted to. You know, he brought in a few other lads that you know, understood the club, that were the better level. You know, James Jennings, people who'd gone and won the league, people who could set better standards, people who expected more from others around them. You know, and that only helps you raise your level and, you know, brings more from you. Now, I always say it about Geno, about John Rooney and stuff, you know, the two of the biggest moaners I've ever played with, but it raises your standards. You either raise to that or you fall by the wayside to that.
Yeah.
You know, and they're not doing it maliciously, they're doing it because they want the best for the collective. You know, and you want the best for you as an individual because their standards are so high that they want you to meet that. They want you to be at that standard. They want you to care as much. And if you do, and you show them that you do, then, you know, that's when the collective comes together. And I feel that's what, you know, Dean Keats certainly managed to do in his first full summer and his first full season at the club. You know, when he signed Sean Pearson, Sam Wedgbury, you know, a good few characters who, you know, have standards, that want to set standards, that want to drive things, that want people to achieve.
Well, Sean Pearson certainly must be high up in the moaning league, and I love the way that when he was off injured, he just sits in the Mold Road stands, have a go at you all from the other side of the pitch. So you had Dean in one ear and him in the other. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Sometimes he talks nonsense. Like he'll be the first to admit it himself. He'll put his hands up, but you know, he's a good character. He's a good lad to have around, and as you say, you know, like me and Sean, we'll bicker all the time. We'll always have little arguments all the time, but it's never ever personal. It's never ever detracting from what we both want, which is a positive result.
Exactly.
You know, and I thought, as you've just said there, I thought his involvement, you know, even when he wasn't playing with his injury and stuff, I thought his involvement was brilliant because, you know, there'd be times when he'd shout on to you like, brothers, come on, brothers, get back. You know, and hearing that from the other side, you think, well, I need to get back here, I need to let the lads out, I need to make sure they're flying that extra 10 yards, that 15 yards to come and do a shift to help people.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it drives you on. Even if sometimes he does pull your hair out when he's dragging you deeper than you need to be, but, you know, he's like I say, he's a great lad, and you know, he'd always do anything to try and help you and help the collective. Exactly,
and he's a centre-back. He's always going to want people 10 yards deeper than they actually are, isn't he?
Yeah, he just wants people to do his job for him, so he gets all rewarded. That's what he's after.
Yeah. Can I just say one final thing to you, Paul, before I let you go, which is that you were talking about players understanding the nature of the town and the fans and wanting to give everything. And I think, funnily enough, it was something I was going to say to you anyway, but you've anticipated it. I've never, you know, when I'm doing commentaries or doing social media stuff, I've never seen a Wrexham player who gets as much affection from Wrexham fans as you do. And I think a big part of that is your unbelievable work rate. But I think also it's because of exactly what you just said. You get the club, you get the fans. They see in you, you know, it's almost like you're doing what they would dream of doing, and what they dream of doing is to put 110% into, sorry for the cliche, and I think that's why fans tend to really speak remarkably highly about you. And I'm talking about fans will exaggerate any of their players, but with you it's not. It's quite touching, it's more heartfelt. They really appreciate you, and I think that's because of what you just said.
No, I'd agree with you. I think, you know, it will ebb and flow at times, and people will, you know, start to look at negatives from time to time. You know, they'll say, oh, he doesn't score enough, he doesn't do this. But I think as a collective and as a whole, you know, I genuinely do feel the affection as well. You know, I feel, you know, loved at Wrexham, and I do think a big part of that is that I go out there, and as you said there, I'll do what every person in the stand would dream of doing. You know, I'm out there performing for a big club, for a massive club with a massive fan base, you know, I leave it on the pitch in terms of my work rate and my work ethic and everything. You know, if you're sat in the stand, the least that you ever want is someone trying the best, trying the hardest, so they'll forgive you for putting cross over the bar or for missing a chance. As long as you're grafting and you're working and you're fighting and you know, you're showing what it means to yourself, and showing what it means to other people, I think, you know, they'll always forgive you the little bits of, you know, probably technical ability that lets you down from time to time. They'll always forgive that if you're giving them everything else.
Exactly.
So it's, you know, as I say, I think that's because, you know, I'm from a working class background. You know, my family are working class. I live in a working class area. I'm working class, and you know, Wrexham as a town is working class. You know, we all go out. We all go out and, you know, earn our living. We don't just take handouts, or, you know, we're not entitled. We have to go and work for everything.
Exactly.
That's why I feel like, you know, it certainly resonates with me, and I think that's what the manager brings as well. You know, the manager brings that mindset, that emphasis. You know, it might not always be pretty on the eye, you know, and it might not always leave the individual happy or the collective happy, but it's always with the intention of doing the best for the club.
Exactly.
And I think, you know, that's the main thing, especially, you know, going forward now with, you know, hopefully the new level of ambition and everything. I think, you know, it's exciting times, and as long as we keep that core and that heart, I think we'll go a long way.
Yeah, I wish I could express it as well as you do. Brilliant.
No, it's truth though, and it's always easy when, you know, I hope it does sound sincere, because it's always easy when you're speaking the truth, and that's genuinely, you know, how I feel about my time at the club and how I feel about the club itself.
I'm John Ponticelli, and you're listening to the Dragonheart Radio Show.
So there's Paul Rutherford. I mean, he's a top bloke. I mean, honestly, he is. And he's fascinating to listen to. And I've got to admit, and I did tell him this afterwards, I was sort of thinking a 10-minute chat in general about how things have gone for him at Wrexham. And we ended up spending 20 minutes mostly talking about just his first season. So I said we'd have to have him back a few more times to have the same chat about each other's season. And he seems up for it. So what a good bloke. But, I mean, you know, the thing with Paul Rutherford is you know what you're going to get. His work rate, his commitment to the team is just endless, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And like you said, he's almost Mr. Consistency in that sense. And fans do appreciate that. You know, he always gives 100% and is passionate about the club. You can see that he loves being a part of the club, and yeah, you know exactly what you're going to get from him, and I think it seems to be overlooked a lot. You know, how many assists and how his hard work does really contribute to the team as well. And he's never going to be kind of your most skillful, taking everyone on or scoring 20 goals in a season, but that's not the type of player he is, and that's not his role either. So yeah, I think he's very reliable, kind of Mr. Consistency, and has over the years has had a bit of stick and things, but I think unwarranted, and also it has depended as well in terms of the team he's been in, the players he has been around, and obviously that can change from year to year, but he's been a great servant to the club, I think.
Oh, 100%. You're right to talk about assists because, okay, yeah, I mean, he admitted it as well. You know, people say they wish he'd score more goals, but he certainly delivers in terms of assists. I talked, as we heard, his first season about how once Dean Keaton, he had a very good ratio of pretty much an assist every 4 games. You've got to remember, of course, assists is a fickle statistic, because if you feed bad strikers and they miss your chances, you don't get the assist. It's down to someone else to give you the assist by actually sticking your pass in the net. And we don't have stats on chances created, sadly, at our level. But if I just go through that, his second season then, he got 12 assists. The season after that, 11. Now, that's double figures. That's impressive. Last season, there was a drop-off, only for 3 assists, but it should be said he had injury problems last season and he played fewer games. He only started 19 league matches, whereas in the other seasons he's been in the 30s and 40s.
What you noticed with games being played behind closed doors now is you notice who the few people in the actual stands are appreciating, and I noticed, especially in regards to work rate, Paul Rutherford will get clapped every single time he closes down someone, because you can't question his work rate. I mean, goals-wise, yes, you wish he would score a few more, but I mean, when he does score, he does really put them in the top corner and score them. And he does like to challenge Luke Young for that goal of the season award. But what I like about Paul Rutherford, I mean, at non-league level, about 75% of the players will topple off at the end of the season. So it's really hard for fans to grow an affinity with players at the club and, like, you know, have that relationship with them. I remember when I was young, I was obsessed with Don Vos, especially after he scored, you know, that goal.
Yeah.
But then he went in like January, I think. So I was like, oh, he's gone. But there are a few players at the club, Pearson, Carrington, Young, you'd say Leighton as well. Paul Rutherford is in that little squad of just core players that have been there for a long time. So fans can really appreciate that culture of the club and grow a part of it. And, you know, that's really evident with Rutherford. You know, I think you were speaking beforehand about his roots with the club. He understands that working class mentality of the town.
Keats values that, and I think people like him, Carrington and Pearson, are important in terms of sort of passing that attitude down through the squad and making them appreciate the club rather than see it as just another stopping off point in their career. And, well, funnily enough, next we've got an interview with someone who makes a very similar point. So through the late 80s, early 90s, Nigel Beaumont was an excellent centre-back for us. And, of course, his son, Bobby, was with us last season as well. And so let's have a listen to what he's got to say after this.
I'm Elliot Durrell, and you're listening to the Dragonheart Radio Show.
Well, Nigel, thanks for coming on. And let's have a quick look at your career at Wrexham. I mean, Dixie brought you in, didn't he? And he immediately put you into the side.
Yeah, I come in as cover really for Mike Williams and Joey, and Mike Williams unfortunately got injured, so in football you've just got to take your chance.
Exactly, and made your debut. You won at Exeter. Seems to remember Graham Cooper scoring a flashy goal, and it must be an experience.
Yeah, it was really fantastic. Like you say, it's always nice to make your debut, get off to a winning start, and that season we had a great season. That season, to be fair. Like you say, Graham was a new player. He come in, I think, did he get 1 or 2 on his debut?
I think he scored in the first 2, didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, so it was great season, that was. Enjoyable.
And at the end of it, of course, we got in the playoffs. And, well, actually, we had a live stream on Wrexham's YouTube channel of the game at Scunthorpe. And it brought back memories seeing you and Joey just batter those strikers. It was fantastic to watch.
To be fair, that was the playoffs, like you say. It was the semi-final was we were absolutely buzzing because, as you know yourself, the fans behind that goal was unbelievable.
Yeah.
The cheers all night. We got an early goal. We got an early goal in the first leg. We got Darren Wright, I think it was. Then we got an early goal at their place, and it was just one of them nights which was absolutely fantastic. I think we left Scunthorpe about 3 a.m. After a few drinks in the bar, because Dixie actually disappeared for about 3 hours with their manager, and by the time he turned up, like, he was a bit the worse for wear.
Excellent. But pity about the final, though. The audience was the opposite.
I think it was only a few minutes to go, wasn't there?
Yeah.
And it was a bit of a fluky goal. I remember it. Well, it went between me and Darren. It was one of them things where both of us couldn't get it. We had a great chance. I think it was Ollie Kearns, where I think the ball literally just hit him in the face. It could have gone in, could have changed the game, but it's just one of them things, isn't it? I don't agree with playoffs. I think you should be wherever you finish at the end of the season. To me, that's where you should end at the end of the season, if you know what I mean.
And Orient pulled a bit of a farce on, didn't they? Because Comfort's their best player, wasn't supposed to be there, and they pulled the game an early kick-off in order to let him play, apparently.
Yeah, well, I didn't know anything about that, to be fair, but then again, it's still 11 against 11, so, and on the day they managed to scrape over the line, but it was just a crying shame, like I say, for the fans, because it was absolutely the actual stand, and that was absolutely chocker again with the Wrexham fans.
And then the next season, you were outstanding, weren't you? You got player of the season. The team struggled a bit, but you held us together.
Yeah, it sort of went all downhill after that, to be fair. Yeah, but it was like you say, I had a very good season. And, you know, I love my time at the club, and it was just one of them seasons when everything I seemed to do went right, even though we struggled as a team. But, you know, it was a privilege to be actually made player of the season, and I think I got the supporters player of the season as well, you know, so it was, absolutely fantastic.
Of course, the game that stands out, I saw us beat Porto, I saw us beat Arsenal, but actually I think that Colchester game, when we could have dropped out the league, if we'd lost it, we'd be 6 points behind them. And when the weather came and helped us out, I think in a way that's my most memorable game I've ever seen Wrexham play.
Well, it was one of them. We were getting beat, weren't we, 2-1 at the time, and you could see the clouds coming in, and we always say it was like God coming in and helping us, really, because I think if it wasn't for that, like, hailstone or whatever we had, I think we would have got beat, really, because it didn't have come down, and like you say, it was in their faces, and I think we'd come out 4-2 winners, wasn't it? Then didn't we go on I think we went about 10 games unbeaten after that, didn't we? You know, which was, fantastic, and we managed to stay up.
It was amazing. We just kept winning 1-0, and Andy Thackeray kept scoring the goal, didn't he? It
was one of them. We got. It's like football. It's like anything in football. When things change, you always have a bad time, and when things change, things would go for you. They'd have a goal disallowed, where sometimes they'd hit the post, the ball would go in, the ball would hit the post, come out. And we'd have I think we got a little fluky goal against Colchester in that game anyway, so it was one of them. It was just good, and then you get on your momentum, and we got to a stage we thought, well, we're not going to get beaten here, which how football changes in space of the game.
Well, I'll tell you how one-sided it was when the snow and the hailstones got up, because I was standing on the top of a gantry commentating, and totally exposed to the weather, and when the weather stopped, my whole back was completely covered in snow, and my front was fine because I was just looking at the cop end for about 10 minutes non-stop. The wind blowing it,
it's like with us. I think the wind picked up as well, and I was just glad that the rain was hitting us on his backs.
Yeah.
And we weren't playing actually into it, because it was a hell of a day. That
was amazing, wasn't it? And then the next season, well, Europe, you're skipper at Old Trafford. That's not bad.
Well, to be fair, I was skipper at Old Trafford, but it was I played against Bromby at home, and I think we drew with Bromby.
Yeah.
But on the away trip, it was all that when you had to have so many homegrown players in, and you couldn't have so many. I think was it 5 foreigners.
I think it was 4.
So I was classed as, was it 5 or 4?
Yeah.
I was classed as a foreigner. And I think at Old Trafford, it wasn't for Mark Sartori being injured. I think Flimmy would have gone with Mark Sartori. It's just that Mark was injured at Old Trafford, so I got the nod instead.
Yeah, just to explain to any listeners who don't remember this, it was weird. Just for a little bit, UEFA said that England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland were different countries. So you were English, and so you couldn't play for Wrexham. And
yeah, because I remember the Bromby game away, which we were looking forward to. And I think there's like 7 of the YTS lads went instead.
Yeah, Futcher and Thomas.
We weren't allowed to go because, I think we went to Chesterfield in a reserve game.
Well, that's a treat, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was fantastic to go there.
It would have been colder there as well, I bet.
Yeah.
But I mean, that was fantastic. That, and then at Old Trafford, frankly, just before half time, it's still 0-0, and we're really starting to frustrate them, aren't we?
Yeah, we you go to play places like that, and the main thing, you've got to try to keep their fans quiet, and we did it for about, I think it was like 40 minutes. Then they got a goal from a corner, then I gave a penalty away. But then again, if you look at the build-up, on it, it was a foul on Wayne Phillips before he dropped there. They took the chances, and I just thought we gave a good account of ourselves, and you know, I think there was about 8,000 Wrexham fans there, and it was a fantastic day for them.
Absolutely. I was in the stand and I was furious about that penalty. I can promise you. I remember it clear as day, and it should never have, like I said, it should have been a free kick to us anyway. But
well, it's one of them things, and he's just skipped past me. I put a leg out, and it's one of them you go over, don't you? But I just thought we gave a good account for ourselves that night. To be fair.
Oh, super! Yeah, it was absolutely outstanding, especially when you can't pick all your players. And then at the racecourse, we stood up to them well as well. It was good over 2 matches to be able to show that sort of fight.
Well, we didn't get battered really, did we? You know, like when you look at the side, what they had, the side they had playing and whatever, and like you say with us, we had to have like pick and choose because of the ruling and whatever. You got to say, you got 5 lads on the bench of YTS lads, and they've got whoever multi-million-pound players sat on the bench.
Exactly, that they didn't rotate then, really, did they? So
no, it was like Hughes, Sinclair, Hughes, McClare, Ince in midfield, Gareth Bruce, Pallister, Irwin, and you're thinking, Christ, look at these, we're playing against boyhood heroes, really.
Yeah. And then the next season was kind of inexplicable, really, wasn't it? Because you didn't get picked at the start of the season. You then had a run of 18 games out of 19. The only game you missed was a Welsh Cup game against Kyle Leon, so obviously that doesn't really matter. Yeah. And then he just stopped picking you. You played in the first 2 rounds of the Cup, but didn't get the chance against Arsenal. It just seems very odd for a player who'd shown you quality over 3.5 years like that.
I think, like you say, we used to call the player of the year the curse. Whoever got released. He was one of them. Flinny has his ideas. He was the manager. Like you say, I played, like you just said there, I played 18 games on the bounce, and I wouldn't say I did anything wrong. I always, one of them, across the white line, you always give 110%. That's all I used to try, and I think that's what the fans appreciate you doing. But it was obvious that he didn't want me there at the club, really. I think Brian Carey come in, Eddie Olds come in. He'd put them in, leave me out. Then he'd put me back in, leave me out. You know when that starts happening, that the writing's on the wall, really. And to be fair, that season, as you say, we finished bottom, and you couldn't really say the team did well anyway, could you? No. If you know what I mean.
Well, exactly. I gotta say, whenever anyone talks about you, they straight away say big, strong, physical centre back. I'm not arguing about that. Like I wouldn't argue with you. But the 2 things that really struck me about you: late 80s, early 90s centre backs, I would argue, didn't really expect to be playing out from the back that much. But you had a hell of a left foot on you.
Yeah, I mean, that's something good I had, to be fair. I think he'd come in handy, like you say, with me being left-footed, and, people turn around and say, them days it was all about just banging the ball forward, but no, at the end of the day, you look for a pass, you try to make a pass, and that's how it is, really.
Yeah. And the other thing that always struck me was Dixie light in the post corner. And you were I was the ultimate near post corner man, because with your broad shoulders, people weren't able to come round you. You'd win so many flick-ons, they just couldn't get round you to get it.
He'd use me as the wall, wouldn't he, Dixie?
But no, I was always a pleasure watching you, and while it lasted for Wrexham, it was a real pleasure watching Bobby as well. He's done well for himself, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's worked hard. I'm so proud of him. Oh, yeah. Like you say, it come about in March. To be fair to it, he's had a few games with the Wrexham first team. Then he went up to Sunderland on trial for a week. Then they asked him could he stay for a few more days, and they just said to us, look, we'll let you know. We'll get back to you. We'll see how you. If we don't get back to you, we'll keep an eye on you and everything else. So, I think it was about a week later, that's when we actually knew that Bobby was that's when we knew Sunderland wanted him for the under-23s up there. But then the COVID-19 kicked in, and it was like we'd not signed anything. They still wanted him, but longer it went on, you're thinking, well, is he going to end up signing? Is he not? Is he? But he's eventually got there eventually. So, he's Sunderland's gain, I say.
Yeah, absolutely. And on behalf of all Wrexham fans, you wish him the best next time you see him. And also, on behalf of all Wrexham fans, I'll say thank you. You were always a wholehearted player with a bit of quality as well. And it was always a pleasure to watch you play, Nigel.
Yeah, thank you. Like you say, it's like I've said before, you play for a club like Wrexham. And, I had a great... I had a great taskmaster because I played alongside Joey. And Joey told you the ins and outs. And I've always said, you come to a club like Wrexham, you've got to get into the club and you've got to understand the fans. I've come from the same background as most of the Wrexham fans, and that's why I still live here now. Because I come here, I love the place, and I think with the Wrexham fans, as long as they see you put a shift in, they appreciate that,
Oh, absolutely. Well, you certainly did that.
I'm Luke Young, and you're listening to the Dragonheart Radio Show.
Nigel Beaumont was always a really reliable character, and in some ways ahead of his time. In a time when a lot of centre-backs were launching it long on muddy pitches, he had a good left foot. These days, well, centre-backs really have to have those sort of qualities to be able to play out from the back, even at our level, don't they?
Yeah, they definitely do, and you can see that in, like you said, the modern centre-back. And because they do tend to have a lot more of the ball nowadays, I would say, playing out from the goalkeeper or just kind of resetting or just gaining, controlling possession or trying to just slow the game down. So yeah, definitely the modern centre back definitely does need to be able to pass the ball and pass well.
That's true. I never thought of that. Everyone talks about how goalkeepers have had to become almost outfield players and be comfortable playing the short goal kicks that are now allowed. But, centre-backs have also had to go through that process. When your midfielder comes back to split the centre-backs, okay, partly that's the midfielder having to do a creative job because they're a better passer, but it's also because those centre-backs need to be able to interact with that midfielder and be able to work the ball around. And sometimes they're the outball because they're wider than him and they can bring it forward. So centre-backs have got to be flexible, and as we saw with Vassell yesterday in the Weymouth game, able to get forwards with good effect.
Yeah, I always bring it back to Liverpool, and people are probably getting sick of me now for this, but it reminds me of when we have Van Dijk or even Joel Matip just pushing forward. When it's just side-to-side football, we can't break down the line. All you need is that centre-back to just push forward and break the line and just confuse everyone, essentially, because you'll get a midfielder or a defender going, I'm not supposed to be marking him, he's a centre-back. And then it does confuse people. But what would be good to see with this three at the back is how it changes the whole complexity of the team, because normally you'll have two centre-backs and then what usually is Harris will drop in and almost form that three centre-back line when we're in possession of the ball. And he'll be the one, who can pass, who can rotate the ball. And that's how they play. But with three centre-backs, obviously he doesn't need to do that. So it will change the complexity of the game if we stick with it.
Yeah, they do, exactly. And I think I think we've seen this season definitely, our defenders, obviously not our midfield, but our defenders are definitely taller than they have been in the past. So that they are a threat from corners and from set pieces. So I think just that adds another dimension, another dynamic to. It's just another threat, another opportunity. Like I said, obviously our midfield is a bit smaller, but at least we do have some height now. Even Record, he's taller as well. So it does add that other opportunity for us, or potential.
And we've got good set piece deliverers as well in this squad, so that we ought to be profiting from that. Dennis Smith always saying as a centre-back himself, he expected himself to be getting at least 5 goals a season, and he always expected his centre-backs to do likewise. And people like Dennis Lawrence and Brian Carey delivered for him. Both of you, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Mark. Cheers.
And to finish off, of course, as always, it's the Jay Harris Hollywood send-off.
This is Jay Harris, and you're listening to Dragonheart Radio.
Thanks very much for watching. Please subscribe as well so you don't miss out on any of our content, and click the bell to get notifications.